No matter the location, from O-A-K-L-A to L-V, I'm a Raider.
Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report. I got a Raiders versus Seahawks preview, some analysis, and I got 10 players that every single Raider fan needs to be watching. Before I get into today's show, predict the score. Raiders going up against the Seattle Seahawks. If you want to go ahead and put some money down on the Raiders, I want you to go to chatsports.com/Raiders. Use that promo code Raiders125, or if you're like, Mitch, can you help me out? What bets are you putting down? Message me on Instagram at Mitchell Renz 365. Raider Nation, what's going on? So today's show is, again, a preview around the Raiders and Seahawks. It's preseason football, man. We finally made it. So I'm going to talk about one player from each position that I'm going to keep a very close eye on in this game. Obviously, you want to see guys like Derek Carr, Josh Jacobs. Hate to break it to you, you're probably not going to see those dudes. So which players on offense should every single person repping silver and black? Every single person repping Raider Nation should go out and watch. We're first going to stick here at the quarterback position. No DC playing, at least if he does, I would be absolutely shocked, which then changes our focus to Marcus Mariota, Nathan Peterman, and newly added case Cookus. The player that I'm going to be watching to see if he's out there is Mariota, simply because I want to see what he looks like going up against another team. He's been struggling in camp of late. He's had 4 interceptions over his last 4 or 5 practices, which is obviously not what you want. But Mariota is going to be a guy I keep in mind, though I do think that Peterman is probably going to get the most snaps in this game. Gruden loves him. His contract is fully guaranteed, so you might as well figure out what you got in him. But Peterman's, I'm going to put my money on that. He's probably going to get the most snaps in this upcoming game. All right, let's go to the running back depth chart now. Jacobs, more than likely not going to be in this one. Alec Ingold, he might get a few snaps. But if you guys can see, there's a lot of players on this roster. Richard, he's not going to be in this one with an injury. Trey Ragas, Garrett Grochek, B.J. Emmons, Bo Scarbrough, all going to be watching. But the 2 running backs that I'm going to watch closest, Kenyan Drake, if he goes out on the field, I want to see how the Raiders use him. I want to see if they move him around the football field at all. If they don't, if they just play boring, vanilla preseason football, then this pick means nothing to me. Then the guy that I'm going to be watching closely is Trey Ragas. Remember this name, Chris Warren. 2018 was just an absolute stud in the preseason. Or was it 2019? I think it was actually 2019. People were calling him Baby Bo. Don't be surprised if the hype around Ragas starts to continue to pick up. He had a great practice on Tuesday, absolutely breaking down Levitt's ankles with a spin move. But his physicality, he's probably going to be that main running back for the Raiders this entire preseason. Speaking of the preseason, I'm going to be live, y'all. And if you like what you're watching right now, our live watch parties, I love my Tuesday show. Watch parties are 100 times better. This is where we're going to be bringing that excitement to a Raiders game right to your living room, right to your bathroom, wherever the hell that you're watching the show right now. So 15 minutes before kickoff, I'm going to go live, and we're going to be live for the entire Raiders vs. Seahawks preseason game. It's like a game cast with analysis. It's going to be a ton of fun, so make sure you subscribe and join in. Let's go to the wide receivers now. Which one should you be watching from this group here? A lot of talent. But I anticipate, again, you're probably going to see a lot of Zay Jones. You're going to see some Keelan Doss, Marcel Aitman. I'm not 100% sure whether or not Bryan Edwards is going to be playing or not. But with the amount of training camp hype around him and the fact that he battled so many injuries last season, I want to see what Edwards looks like. And I want to see him on the main stage. Does the injury history scare me? Yes, but if I was Edwards, I'd want to be out there. I'd want to be out there on the field, being able to show my talent. And if Edwards is a guy that gets banged up or isn't out there on the field, the other name that I'm going to throw out there is Zay Jones, who's been looking really good in camp. So out of all the players on offense, who are you going to be watching the closest, right? Because obviously the offensive side of the football, I would say for the normal fan, is probably the more entertaining thing to watch because it's points. Fantasy football has really skewed that. I'm going to throw out the name either Trey Ragas or Alex Leatherwood. If those guys don't end up playing, John Simpson's going to be a dude that I watch very, very closely. Let's go to the tight ends now. Foster Moreau, Derek Carrier, Matt Bushman, Alex Ellis, Nick Bowers. Which one out of these guys should every single person from the nation be watching? If Moreau's out there on the field, there's going to be another dude. This is going to be a guy that you need to watch. Is he going to be using the red zone a lot? How does he match up against some of these Seattle corners that really struggled last season? But if Moreau doesn't get a lot of playing time, I anticipate the tight end that gets the most playing time in this game is Matt Bushman, UDFA out of BYU. The Raiders signed him to a $125,000 signing bonus, 8th most among all UDFAs. He had a fumble on Tuesday. He's had some up and down reports, but the reason why I really want to watch him, he didn't play in 2020. He was BYU's best receiver basically the first 3 years that he was there, and I wish I could have seen him with Zach Wilson. But if he's like right now on the roster bubble, and from an athletic standpoint, from a catching standpoint, he's probably the third best catching tight end behind Moreau and Waller, but his blocking has been struggling. So I want to see what Bushman can do in this game. Let's go to the offensive line now. I'll probably say the only players that you're going to see out there from the starting line, maybe Andre James, and I'm really, really hoping Alex Leatherwood's out there. If those guys aren't there, I'll probably go ahead and point my finger at some other players, but in terms of Alex Leatherwood, he's been looking like an absolute stud. I mean, Tom Cable can't stop smiling about him. The Raiders can't stop smiling about him. And I want to see what he can do going up against another team if he just straight up mauls some people. If Leatherwood doesn't get a lot of snaps, the next guy I'm going to be watching very closely is Brandon Parker. He's probably the backup tackle in case somebody like Colton Miller goes down, somebody like Leatherwood goes down. But Parker, even though he was drafted high a few years ago back in 2018, by no means whatsoever is a lock to make this roster. If he struggles in the preseason, he could be a guy that ends up getting cut. Another guy that I want you guys to watch is John Simpson. He's kind of like the sixth man, right? You know how NBA teams have 5 teams starting, 5 offensive linemen, and then the six-man award? That's what John Simpson is. If one of those offensive linemen go down, I actually think Simpson kicks into the guard position. Denzel Good swings out to tackle. I'm really curious to see where the 4th rounder out of Clemson back in 2020, how he's looking this upcoming season. Now, remember earlier in the video, I was like, hey, you guys want to put some money down on this game? I'll tell you what, as soon as football comes back, I'm like, dude, let's go ahead, let's throw some money down. I've had a few people ask me, are you going to have that awesome deal that you guys had last year? Oh, yeah, I got it. It's chatsports.com/Raiders. If you want to bet on the Raiders to win this preseason game, if you want to bet on the Raiders to win the Super Bowl, Derek Carr MVP, I don't give a shit what you want to do. You got to go to chatsports.com/Raiders, though. You got to use Raiders125 as the promo, and it gets you 125% deposit bonus. So you definitely got to keep that in mind. If you have any questions whatsoever about this deal, you can feel free to email me, Raiders@chatsports.com. Now, for this preseason Week 1 game, the Raiders are favored at 1.5 points. The over-under is 37.5. Some of you might be like, wow, that's kind of a low over-under, and you're 100% right. In terms of a favorite, 1.5, these are the bets that I'm personally going to be going with in this one. I'm going to take the Raiders to cover the spread here for the simple fact of usually you bet on the better quarterback play. Mariota, Peterman is a lot better than Geno Smith and whoever else the hell the Seahawks are going to rock and roll with. In terms of the over-under, I'm also going to take the under in this one. Now, usually I'm always like, hey, man, life's too short. You bet the over. I'm betting the under. I watched that Cowboys-Steelers preseason Hall of Fame game. That was really, really ugly. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bet the under. So I'm taking the Raiders to cover, and I'm going with the under. Those are the bets that I'm rocking and rolling with. You guys, if you want to make your own bets, again, it is chatsports.com/Raiders. You get that 125% deposit bonus. All right, we're going to keep the show rolling here. Let's go to the defensive side of the football because we talked about offense. Now let's talk about defense. And I know a lot of y'all are going to be watching defense closely, and most Raider fans 100% should. I know offense is what the media will talk about. But if you're a fan, you should be watching the defense. And we're going to start with the big guys up front, the defensive ends. Yannick Ngakoue, Crosby, Furl. Not sure how much run any of those players are going to get, but I really want to see Malcolm Koonce, Carl Nassib, even Gary Green, who's been getting a lot of good reports thus far. But the number one player that you should be watching on the edge is the rookie, Malcolm Koonce out of Buffalo. He's been battling some injuries here and there, but he's had some good practices. He's had some okay practices. But how can we use our third down specialist, somebody that's probably going to get 25% of the snaps this year, to be that edge rusher? I want to see what the undersized rookie can do because I'm hoping really good things from him. Let's go to the defensive tackles now. There's a lot of these guys here. Quentin Jefferson's been basically the top DT, I'd say, thus far in camp. Solomon Thomas, DT2, and then nose tackles. Nose tackles, these are going to be the guys kind of hanging out over the center. In terms of some of these defensive tackles, I got 3 of them because I don't know exactly who's going to end up making this 53. If the Raiders went out and they signed Gerald McCoy, one of the biggest reasons why they did that, they needed a bigger nose tackle because they weren't confident in what Solomon Thomas had in terms of size. I think McCoy makes the team, though I don't know if he's going to be playing in this game because they want to get him into better shape. Darius Philon, another DT who's been looking really good in camp, been working with some of the ones as well, hasn't seen NFL action in over 2 years. How does he look this upcoming week? Darius Stills, he wasn't at practice on Tuesday. He's been battling some injuries, actually missed a few practices. But the young UDFA out of West Virginia has also created a lot of hype as well. And he's a dude that I like a lot, and I really hope he can end up making this team. Though, the DT position is getting deeper and deeper for the Raiders, and the way Gus Bradley is going to be able to rotate these guys in. So if you could only keep one defensive tackle out of the 3 names that you see on screen right now, who would you keep? Would you keep Gerald McCoy? I want you to type M for McCoy. Maybe it's Darius Philon. Go ahead and type P. If it's Darius Stills, then type S. As much as I like Stills, as much as I like Philon, if I could only keep one, I would keep McCoy. If I could keep 2, I'd probably go ahead and type PM. Let's go to the linebacking group. And for probably the first time in a long time, this is the deepest linebacking unit for the Raiders that I've seen. Definitely in my time covering this team and probably in the last 5-6 years, and that's even with somebody like Khalil Mack. Like, that's how confident I am in this linebacking unit. Corey Littleton, Nicholas Morrow, but the number one guy that y'all should be watching is Tanner Muse. Somebody that, me included, totally wrote off Muse. I was like, it's going to be a bad draft pick. He's never going to live up to the hype. And Tanner Muse this entire offseason has basically been like, F you, Mitch, F everyone that was doubting me right now, and good. He's right now the starting strong side linebacker in 4-3 base. I want to see what this guy looks like. Another player that I'm going to be watching very closely, Javen White. One Raiders insider on Twitter named Javen White the MVP of practice on Tuesday. He's been a great sideline-to-sideline linebacker, which is exactly what you're looking for in a Gus Bradley defense. But there's just so many players there right now. Where can you fit Javen White into this lineup? Is he going to be another practice squad guy? Potentially. All I'm saying is I want to see more out of those 2 dudes. Let's now go to the cornerback room here. A lot of familiar faces to some. Tre'von Moehrig and Casey Hayward, those are your top 2 players. Nevin Lawson, they might throw him out there on the field because he suspended those first 2 games, but I'm going to watch Nate Hobbs like an absolute hawk. I'm going to be watching Rasul Douglas, Keyshawn Nixon, but the number 1 player that I'm going to be watching, and it probably is not a big surprise to anyone, it's Damon Arnette. How does he look? Does he look like that he's a little bit stronger? Does he look like that he can handle the responsibility of being an outside corner? Do they use him in the nickel a little bit? What does this guy look like? Because anytime you're drafted in the first round, your expectations are high. And I have held very high expectations for Arnette. I've also probably been one of the hardest guys in the media on him. But I want to see what he can do, especially if they trot out DK Metcalf or if they trot out Tyler Lockett. How is Arnette going to go up against some of these other players? Let's now go to the safety position here. Moehrig, Levitt, Abram, Carl, Joseph. Those are probably the names that y'all are probably most familiar with. Though the biggest safety, the number 1 guy that I'm going to watch, and I hope he's out there on the field, it's Moehrig, who the Raiders traded up for in the 2nd round, 43 overall out of TCU. He won Defensive Back of the Year in college football last season. He can do it all, man. He has been phenomenal thus far at camp, breaking up passes, whether it's been one-on-one, whether it's been in zone. I don't know if the Raiders are going to roll him out there. If they decide not to put him out there, I'm going to be watching Carl Joseph and Jonathan Abram very closely and what maybe the starting safety could potentially be looking like in the Gus Bradley system, because I want to see more out of the box safeties. All right, y'all, so which player on the defensive side of the football are y'all going to be watching the closest? So right now we got 713 people watching this live, 303 likes, so I got to be doing something halfway decent around here. But seriously, this show is predicated on the nation, so which player are you watching the closest on defense? Now, before I go, for those of you that don't know, I'm a big-time family guy, and this would have been my grandfather's 84th birthday. This picture's like 20 years ago with my grandma and my grandpa, and I just want to wish him a happy, happy birthday, even though you're not around. We think about you all the time. We love you to death, and if anybody out there is ever dealing with family loss or dealing with some difficult time in their life, life, that's another opportunity. I mean it. My DMs are open for a reason. Y'all have helped me get through some really, really tough times. But Grandpa, I love you. I miss you. Happy birthday.